regăsit la Muzeul Național al Literaturii Române, la întâlnirea cu genericul Despre, puterea poeziei, The Power of Poetry, un dialog deschis publicului, împreună cu o serie de lecturi performative ale invitatei noastre speciale de astăzi, Zuzanei Husárová, o poetă, cercetătoare din Slovacia, preocupată de poezia experimentală, sonoră și electronică, media digitală, performance, intermedia și inteligența artificială. Găsiți o prezentare detaliată a autoarei, căreia îi mulțumim pentru prezență, pe site-ul muzeului. E bine să amintim faptul că prezența Zuzanei Husárová astăzi aici are loc în continuitatea unei participări memorabile a autoarei din Slovacia la Festivalul Internațional de Poezie București. Dialogul va avea loc în limba engleză, cu posibilitatea traducerii în română și din română, și vă încurajăm să participați. So, dear Zuzanei Husárová, thank you very much for your presence here today at this meeting dedicated to the power of poetry. This is a special event, as we like to say that the National Museum of Romanian Literature is even more than its name announces. It's an open cultural institution in understanding and promoting literature even beyond national and generational boundaries. And for the beginning, what would you like to tell us about the key topic of our meeting? How do you relate to poetry, to its power?
Hopefully you can hear me there in the end as well. When we were discussing with Vasile, like which basically topics or which themes we should talk about, we came into idea that right now there's a lot of struggle regarding democracy, a lot of struggle regarding the misuse of language, deterioration of language in the media sphere, and the misuse of language for the power and the power structures, etc., etc. So it has been copied, misused, but many times people don't even know what they are sharing. So I think that since poetry is extremely condensed form that delivers feelings rather than just concrete meaning, for me poetry is something that has to be lived. So I don't think the poetry is only based in language. I think poetry is something that is happening before the language. The language is the means, and then you have after like the experiential part where you kind of translate it into your own basically understanding, which is either intellectual, conceptual, or bodily. So I think basically the vehicle of the language can create a really interesting bridge of connecting the authors with their audience. So for me, extremely important is the audience of the poetry and the audience where I present the works. That's why I have also written forms, but for me, the performance of it during the live events and the sonical part of it is extremely important, because I think it's a different genre, different medium where you can create a different experience rather than just reading. So to get back into what is the power of poetry and basically like how it influences us, I think it's for today's time is extremely important medium that can be very condensed, but in the condensed form can deliver a lot of meanings. So in today's time, when people scroll and don't have time for anything, reading a poem that influences you afterwards and can influence you for minutes or hours is extremely important for how to trigger someone's thinking ability or change someone's feeling of getting closer to us. So I think it's an extremely important form. Like in the 20th century, we had an American environment. We started with short stories because they needed more condensed form for kind of giving a shorter time span. I think poetry nowadays, also with media and also with different forms of how it can be delivered, is an extremely important form because of also its reduction and the lasting effect afterwards.
Well, thank you so much for this generous introduction. And as we intend to discuss about poetry in relation with the social and technological context on the one hand. On the other hand, you also are the co-author of the theoretical book, The Culture of Neural Network. Would you like to say us something about how did the way you write poetry changed after being immersed in research related to the new technology and even in the very reality of the social media, because we discussed in different terms of attention, intensity, of trying to obtain a certain effect. So would you describe your experience in these terms? Did anything meaningful change in the way you conceive your poetic work?
I started writing poetry after I finished my PhD. So I'm probably a completely different type of author than all of you are. I'm really kind of happy that you have poetry, or write poetry at this young age, because I think it's very important. So I all the time had poetic thinking, but I never considered it as poems when I was younger. So only after I finished my PhD, and I did a PhD of something that's called electronic literature. So it's a combination, it was a theoretical PhD, it wasn't creative, it was theoretical. And I did analysis and studying and research of different forms of poetry and prose that are created in electronic media, digital media, and you can experience them as hypertext, hyperlinks, or different types of kind of moving text. And I was dealing with consequences of this for the culture. And I started doing different experimental forms after the PhD. So I was in parallel a researcher and a poet, but I also kind of did the poetry in different forms, like video, art, sound poetry. We had different installations that were very kinetic, and then we worked with Kinect, and they were installed in galleries. And this book that's called Hypomnemata, it's I don't really know sometimes how to count how many books I had because I have different projects. That some of them are in a small book form, but still are books, but they are kind of like not that difficult. But I had Liminal Lutz and Ameba, which was a small book by a British publishing house, and it's on a transparent paper, and it's origami book. And then I had a book that was created by Neural Network, but it was already in 2020, before ChatGPT. It was by the program called GPT-2, which allowed people, mostly programmers, to work with the program and fine-tune it, so take other sources of the text and rework it based on those texts. So my husband's a programmer, so we retrained it on the Slovak poetry, on 2,000 words of Slovak poetry that the publishing houses gave to us, provided us with, for this kind of type of project. So, and we named that entity Lisa Genar, because we wanted to have there like a playful act on it, and it got the National Poetry Prize. But I was still kind of like, I was writing this book before that and after that. So it's not that it completely changed my position, but the thing that happened to me is, since I realized that most of the text nowadays can be done by neural networks, what we can do is listen to each other and basically give a voice to those who wouldn't normally have voice. So for me, all this book is based on listening to conversations of either in the public space or reading something. And I, during those 6-7 years, was making notes and then creating poems that were based on the first line is usually, the first part is usually the thing that I heard somewhere, somebody told me, or I heard in a public space, or kind of like just people passing by telling me weird things, that gives you a very important kind of like socio-cultural, socio-economical background. And then I added my own text with it. But it's extremely polyvocal, and I really wanted other people to have their voice, rather than having a text that's not intended to be a poem in the first place, like when you have with GPTs that's trained on somebody else's data. So for me it was very important to make the poetry part of the whole community and make it as a place for a conversation and listening to a conversation. So make it, so for example, normally I go with headphones, but during the time I didn't go with headphones. I was just listening to the space and making notes and trying to kind of like give that lived situation into the poetic form.
Well, thank you for this meaningful accent on listening, and it's a good moment to ask if we have any questions from the audience.
Do you think interpretation and performance can give life to creatively assisted AI, and AI as a partner, not just a tool?
I think AI is a tool, but it's a tool of the authors that then make it into their own either performance or their other work. So there are different ways how AI can be part of the either poetic or literary work. Some of them is that you let it write something, or you kind of like communicate with it and make it more in a co-creation mode. Or, so that is the part of the writing process, but we don't have, there's one robot called AIDA, or IDA, that is a robot that speaks with kind of robotic voice and speaks with neural networks. That's the only robot that is considered to be a creative robot on its own based on AI. But then, for example, I've been doing also performances with our neural network. But when the researchers, mostly from Germany, wrote about my approach to performances, they said that I all the time didn't do it with only my voice and my own personality, but I all the time involve people from the public. So it's all the time polyvocal. There are more people reading that poem at the same time. I ask the people, I give them notes, I give them text, and they read all together like a chorus. Because I want to kind of stress the fact that neural networks and AI is not created solely, it doesn't have authorship on its own, but something that we call framed authorship, which means it has different authors that are part of the whole project. So there are the technicians, there are the people whose work it was trained on. There is a conceptual frame, is the author that actually created that conceptual idea. And then you have that, basically the text, where the textual creation is done by the AI. But it doesn't want to produce text in the context. It's not like authors, right? We want to create something, that's why we create them. But AIs don't want to do anything. I mean, they are asked to do something. They don't have agency, and they don't have intention. So this shift of intention is something that is very important. And we have something that the authors from the receptional aesthetics school were talking about, the horizon of expectation. So we expect behind the text that is written and that has meaning for us, we expect a human entity, or we expect brain, we expect emotion, we expect or lived experience, but doesn't have any of this. So then our task is either to read this and project our own intentionality into it, or our own meaning into it, or to take it as really like completely unlived technical work and consider there only as advancement in technologies. But for me it's really interesting when people start taking it also in the way that it's technically based, but we can think about different meanings that it produces, and if those meanings, how we create meanings in something that wasn't meaningful at the beginning. So it gives you different ideas of, it gives a really strong focus on the readership. More than the human-centered text. Because in human-centered text, you read the human experience. And the language is very often kind of like a bridge to the human experience. But there you don't have any human experience in the first place. So I don't know if I answer it completely, but I tried with...
Yeah, well, thank you for this intention. And if you agree, I suggest us to have Zuzanei Husárová's reading, the performer reading, because the performative reading of our author, of course, can be the source of other questions. So we're listening and carefully watching. We are present, in a word. The artist is present.
Yeah, I'll be reading 3 poems. 2 of them will be in English, and the last one will be in Slovak, because the Slovak one wasn't translated only into German, so we don't speak that much German. And it's quite sonical, so it's good to read in Slovak. Then I'll tell you the meaning of it. But the first one is called Imports. It was written quite a lot during the time of Corona, so maybe you'll find, maybe you can get now into the Corona times. In 2 minutes, ready. Car stopped. The news were transferred by courier. Everything paid without contact, without pronouns, without sketch, without sign. Already again. Without cheap abrasions and passion. Wrapped in place of silence. Packed folders in creation. Without their return address. Threads protruded from the package containing conscience, anxiety, and fables, untied at home, fragile. Are you at your address? We have already finished marching, wishing, dreaming. We are at home and will come. Future and end users. I'll open the door for you so you don't get wet. It hasn't been raining here for a long time, only in the forecast. Can't you see the sky from the car? We have lost tangibility, mechanics, the art of kinetics. When I sign, write me. News about the ends hurt more if you peel them off yourself. The pulp burned in scissors. The summer fell asleep in quarantine. The secrets of parasols were beaten by sand. Human footprints in the sea disappeared. Sight of extra beds gone with the wind. Were caught by a letter of desire. When the last ones will be without voices, those in the middle will be dazzled by a chant of connected vessels. And we were still clement. Who did not want to, did not be, 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 be. rest finished in beeping. Reports about end were closed in another wagon, in another day, in another person, and the child whispers to you, it is a fate that whistles. You, 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 can be a nice dandelion. Okay, so that was the Corona importing poem, when everybody was just permanently getting something with a courier. The second one is called Redixis, and this one is feministic, and it's much more based on different things that people say to me. And I very often, like people ask me like what are usually the reasons why I write, and very often the reasons why I write is anger. It's either anger or frustration, and I try to kind of transfer that anger and frustration into something more meaningful or something with hope. But I still kind of address the exact things that people say that make me angry to create like a debate about those words. So Redixis, so those are the roots. So I want to have their kind of like rooting in the Slovak culture. This is quite about also Slovak culture. As my wife says, art must be radical. Says the man over a cig. If you undressed on the stage, that would be radical. But it's still refreshing when people don't just read from their book. Mind the gap. Mind the gap. Mind the gap. Mind the gap. Our daily sexism. Deliver us. Mind the gap, says the voice speaking straight to me. Don't dwell on it. Everyone wants to be fresh, especially in their 90s, while frequenting literary salons. And as for snow, you have to line it up in those apartments cluttered with books, from carpet to carpet, from check to check, from leg to leg. Even in those tiny apartments, when the culture hangs out. Literary avant-garde in Russia can't afford big flats, as the writer from Moscow says, while on tour around Western universities, with another writer and two women clapping admiringly. There's no censorship in Russia, it's just Western media making things up. Anyone is free to write, anyone who wants. Homosexuality is a widespread topic too. The problem is, who reads it all? Who reads it all, they said. And pills. Where did I leave them? Someone asks. Drops. Blood sausages. Where did I leave my knife? Where did I leave it? Where are we anyways? Drink as much as you can hold. Down it so your blood pressure evens up. It is the first time I heard this. Ooh, I can't hear you. The signal's down. Biologically significant stimuli from the first signal system. In humans, the stimuli include thoughts, which constitute thinking, speech, and work. The second signal system, wheat, covers not only the act of fleeing or eluding, but also flowing, leaking, and disappearing into the distance. It has no relation to flying. Right, they're losing Gatari. Shabby backrests, faded seats, a shift, cube, a shift, shiny eyeballs with veins, the line of the flowing in, the line of light. Stretched against the wall, forward march, and who wants you here? And us? Who here? We all are immigrants. Nowadays, on rhizomatic ends. But I didn't work in that wagon, my colleague will have told you. I don't know about it, so no, only those required ones, says the conductor. People say, behind the screen. There's never enough of defect holes, plastic bags of failures, bottles of sleep, bed sores. The line of light marks the reality of a finite number of dimensions that the multiplicity effectively fills. The impossibility of a supplementary dimension unless the multiplicity is transformed by the line of light. The possibility and necessity of letting all of the multiplicities on a single plane of consistency or exteriority regardless of the number of dimensions. 12 dimensions are too few, says Sister in the Fuga Club. Over the rattle of grime, over the panting of the steam engine, in alcohol vapor, in virtual reality, there's at least 22 of them. Listen, that idiot told me I'm running out of time and he's 20 years older. Shouts the girl in a wine bar. Multiplicities are defined by the outside, by the abstract line, the line of light, or deterritorialization, according to which they change in nature and connect with other multiplicities, still D and G. You are not afraid to take the elevator with me? Asked the man with a helmet, also on his bike. Such a pretty young lady, no, why? Even at night you wouldn't know why. You know, Petržalka, see, even the elevator, how many years has it been here? 5, 6, and see how it looks. My son was willing to buy an apartment and I talked him out of Petržalka. We did buy one here. So, you are her husband? Asked the philosopher at the literary festival in the A4 cultural space. Why didn't you make her a baby already, so she finally... Verb. What the fuck? Excuse me? The other child is also a girl? Asks a neighbor. And when will you finally have a boy? Never. What the fuck? You have to admit, says the man as he bikes away, we are not a cultured nation. Okay, maybe I read now the Slovak one so that you hear a little Slovaks. It's also a little different Slovak than normal Slovak, but whatever. And it's called rušičky, which means different types of disturbing engines. So it's either networks, clocks, media, emails, whatever, anything that disturbs you, or it kind of takes your time out of things. Vyrolované viečka, ako brána na garáži a ideš nové ráno, večer, doprava doľava swipe, click, scroll, doprava doľava wait, keep the goal, doprava doľava like chick, zvyk, troll, doprava doľava hide, tick, roll. On gating, live, product, ad. Tečko, Fko, Ičko, Pečko, G, tvečko, vapko, linko, redko, G, Q, Q, G, I, U, 2, G, I, U, 2. G-I-U. Ja ťa nebudem rušiť, len ešte, ja ťa nebudem rušiť, len napíš. Odhaľ, povedz, vyber, kúp. Predal som ťa. Tvoje vrece plné smajlikov, ak neplatíš, si produkt. Predávaná istota, podsúvané info. V polarizovanej online spoločnosti každý verí vlastnému. Predikujú dáta, predikujú cez model, predikujú budúcnosti. Sme laboratórne myši dneška? Social dilemma, social dilemma, social dilemma, social. Dobrý to bylo, jo? No vidíš, poserótko. Pribalím ti odpovede ako batožinu a keď znova počkáš, z vody vyskočí jednorožec. Aj tak sa musíme o seba postarať sami. Voda stúpa, člnok na čím zaopatriť. Šteklenie na nohách nezaberá. Šteklenie na nohách nezaberá. Šteklenie na nohách nezaberá. This one, and you can maybe play it there as well, because that is the one with the Romanian translation. For that. Yeah, we have it here. Yeah, it's the one that's called Vrabli. What's the text?
It's okay. We shall find it.
Find the scroll.
Yeah, yeah.
Once I find the scroll,
Yes, this one is going to go up.
Okay.
Yeah, okay, but it's like in the middle, so you can go.
Yeah, but
It's not very fast, so I think you should see.
It's this one. Yeah, it's this one.
Can't stay here. You want to operate it or?
Yeah, maybe you know, because you know you speak English, so you also speak English, but
Let's make a wider range at the camera because we also have to see you. Okay. I think it's okay.
yeah, and this one is called Sparrows. I was doing quite a lot of research about sleep and the importance of sleep. You know, I have enough sleep, I have 2 kids. So when I was kind of dealing with how much it influences your thinking, your brain, etc., etc. And I was at a really great exhibition, it was 24/7, and it was based on a book by Jonathan Crary. And he wrote there about different aspects of sleep and how sleep is the only, basically, still the only essence that we have in the biological life that the capitalism hasn't taken from us. Because it has been taken by food, it has been taken by sex, it has been taken by, I don't know, whatever, where we live, etc., etc. People say that also, kind of like some people say that even the sleep has been taken by capitalism, but still has been reduced, but still since it hasn't been researched that much, and still people don't know exactly what is happening during the sleep. It hasn't been taken over completely. And but there are different ways how they try to take it from us. And one of them is that they are studying, the American army is studying birds that are called white white-crowned sparrows, because they fly 7 or 8 days without rest. They have a special type of rest. They stop flying, but they still don't fall down. So they have some type of mechanism in which they don't create too much energy, but still don't sleep. And they have been kind of trying to find out how to do this based on the soldiers, etc., etc. So, and this is based, that God is called sparrows, because it's about, it has a connection with those birds, and I'll tell you where. It's not obvious at the beginning, but that's why I'm giving you this intro. Okay, I can donate only half the amount of blood to myself versus to others. Analogies to the gauge of society. Silent assurances, support, you hope for shifts, changes, new areas, new understandings. You hoped. And void. Sweet, sleeping, unconsciousness, forget and rise from the carpet. To live through, to peel in, to sink, as in a dream that you have long forgotten. Stolen collections of textual bliss flow in your veins. Everything thus has its course which you cannot face. Waiting is now, is the new now. You don't even know if words, if their form, and people below are still just greeting. I still want to write and I want to converse. Question, question, answer after it. It remains to protest and to want to be heard. An attitude, a step behind it. Shh. On the wall, clouds and lace. Fingerprints in the hemispheres. Those who have learned from the past believe in your hopes. In our country, the post-virus has brought further decline. Standing out means you have only jumped higher. They say we have forgotten to blush these days. And the spectacle is just society's wish for sleep, according to the board. You follow me, but it looks like I follow you. And when, at least, I put time on the domestic scale, I find that it's lost. Wait, so let's finally lie down. Before the world's voracity, sleep always has a chance. Less than 8, more than 5. As you make your bed, you will wake up with such mass synchronization of consciousness and memory. What I don't know, I won't reveal. If it doesn't vibrate, I'm sleeping. Let's not be like the white-crowned sparrows during migration. They fly for 7 days without rest and are examined by the army. Everyday life, everyday life, everyday life, everyday life. Every day signifies the possibility of adding the word. Mama, I don't know why you have so many reasons to be nervous. You cuddle your baby, you sing, you cry over the world, you cuddle your baby, you sing, when they sleep, when they sleep, when they sleep, your eyes dry up, and you just ensure that another rule won't solve anything. anyway. On a trip to Los Angeles, a woman screamed at me in horror. She should have been dead. She should have been dead! I just didn't cross at the green light. Everyday life is a bonus. The migrating bantings are already knocking on the window, and what you want is to add a word at the end of the line to find the percentage of meaning that might go from the house to the street, from the street to the city, from the city to the state, that will cover us like the breath of sleeping children. And this.
Dear Zuzanei Husárová, îi mulțumim invitatei noastre. And now please let us know if you have any questions, comments, reactions after these performative readings. Și vă rugăm să ne spuneți dacă aveți întrebări, puteți să vă adresați și în română și traducem.
Sparrows. Sparrows.
Oh, it's all purple and there are sparrows.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, so here we have Mistina Vasile. Yes, it's a poetic coincidence. Mistina Vasile, an important poet and professor leading a workshop here at the National Museum of Romanian Literature, has a poem with sparrows.
Wow.
And grace to as a purple, you know, is a special color for you, and it's a poetic gift. Okay. Yeah, it's a different poem with sparrows. It's also for initially for Cătălina Matei, another important contemporary Romanian author, invited to the workshop.
Sorry, I'm moderating the thing at 6.
Thank you. So, do you have any questions?
Meetings.
It's all right.
Yeah, please.
Like, I was wondering, what if, turning back to what you were saying earlier with ChatGPT and how we try to put intentionality back. I was wondering how it is like similar or different to like how the Dada movement proposed, I don't know, cutting up the newspaper and then creating, or like found poetry. Like I was curious, like what parallels, if there are, I don't know. To me, they seemed similar in a way, but yeah.
Yeah, so basically like the history of the generative, like we can call, if we follow the trend of either kind of generative literature or the thing that has been done as a chance operation, so there are kind of like two different things but can be somehow made into similar thing. So, for example, there were also different experiments already in the Baroque literature where they were playing with, for example, Georg Harsdorfer, which was a German author. He did, it was called Fünffache Denkrieg der deutschen Sprache, which means a 5-layered thin ring of German language. And he did pre-syllables, then the content syllables, then the syllables afterwards and syllables afterwards. And his intention was that the people create new language. And all the time it was done, it was just an experiment, but he wanted people to kind of like roll those different 5 circles so that they create new words. So it was also like a generating language, but with tools that are hand-based. Mm-hmm. That is very similar to what Dada was doing. I mean, they were either cutting up the text or kind of like we took something from from a hat, or they played in different meaning. But what was quite different from them is like Husárová did it as an experiment, more like a language creation experiment. And Dadaism and most of the avant-gardes, they're kind of working with the language was based on like Dadaism, the play part of it was as a counter weapon against war mechanisms, misuse of the language as an apparatus of power against people. So the subversive element of it, like creating something that you wouldn't normally think about with the helpful of mixing things, was still a weapon against the normal language that started to be on the posters and started to be kind of mass synchronized for the kind of misuse of propaganda. So, and we don't have anything like that with ChatGPT. I mean, it's a normal language that doesn't have any intention. It's not subversive in any way. It's mostly used for normal people to deal with their life and deal with emails and have quicker images rather than paying artists, having kind of like your text to be edited in a different way for some people to kind of quickly do something and for others to kind of do something very quickly. It is also used for creative tools, like some people use it for the language, but there is still a very small amount of where is it used, how is it used, and what was its intention with this purpose. And the problem is still that Dadaism and other avant-gardes, they were groups of intelligent, culturally oriented people who wanted to do something for the culture, for the public, for their own voice, in the kind of artistic sense.
And strictly
that language wasn't created for anything artistic, it is just used in some way. Some of those parts were, when, for example, before the ChatGPT, the GPT-1, some of the authors who were trying on this trained network, they first were basing it on Shakespeare's. Because Shakespeare has a whole collection, it's free, you can do it, it's rhyming, so I mean, it's easier to follow and easier to create kind of like new poems. So the first ones were also based on Shakespeare, but it wasn't OpenAI's GPT.
Okay.
Those were other projects. They were called RNN networks, recursive neural networks. It was a different model.
Okay.
By different, and those was done by the researchers who are independent at universities. So the problem with the ChatGPT and all these others is that it wasn't trained at universities, it wasn't done with the intention to inform the public about the processes. Nowadays, it's not open, and God thanks it's not open because it would be misused. But still the problem is like we don't know what everything is there, what everything it was trained on, I mean, what it will be used afterwards. So I'm not afraid of AI, I'm afraid of people misusing it for their military purposes and propaganda and manipulation of the people. So rather the high scale of human intolerance and will to power, then I mean they don't want anything, they are technical inventions.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for this large perspective and for that essential nuance that you are not afraid of AI, you are afraid of people misusing AI. It's a critical and essential nuance here. Do we have any other questions or commentaries after Zuzanei Husárová's reading, please?
Yes. I want to ask this question, even though I know AI doesn't publish on a very large scale books or any text.
No, it does. I mean, there are thousands.
Yeah.
But
How do you think new poetry authors can keep their relevance in this constant evolving world with new AI technologies?
So I think what happened is that I think if you are a clever author, you realized that a text can be generated. So what else can we do that goes beyond creation of the text and is still poetic. So I think now is the time for either more conceptual plays. It still doesn't really generate visual poetry, it doesn't generate sound poetry, it doesn't generate any other media poetry, it's still just text that is text-based. So for us, is basically like a new approach, like what can we do that is creative, just beyond the semantics of the text, as the linking words after each other. So for example, slam poets, they use the rhythm and the playing in different forms. Other type of experimental poets do some other experimentation. So now I think this is the state, like what can you do that exceeds just writing words? I think it's also important to write words, of course, but maybe it's also interesting to think what can be done above it so that all of us still have uniqueness. But the positive thing, and also according to research, is that people want to read people's poetry. People, even if there was a research and they liked the GPT poetry more than the human because it's easier, it's easy to understand. I mean, the metaphors are rubbish, but they are easy. It's much less complicated than the human poetry. So many of the people, general people, liked that one more. But they liked it more because they thought it's human. So we still have, what we do, as we have text, we have readings, we have crystalling of those books, we have anthologies, we have public presentations. We have all other things just beyond the written text where people want to associate. I think people, like, you sell much more if you are there publicly and if you invite your friends and your friends buy the book. Like, people don't want to buy books that are just generated for the sake of giving you extra info. In the experimental forum, for example, like we did, yes, but they knew it's ours. I also wrote a 10-page introduction, why we did it, how we did it. I gave their kind of like a Slovak history of generated poetry. So it was kind of like an experiment that was giving light to what is happening, and it was much longer time ago. But nowadays, I still think that human have much more power than, like, do you know people who want to read poetry that is generated?
I think it's a bigger question here, if I may.
Please.
Start. And the question is, what is more important in the art? The talent of the artist or the idea? And I will explain why, because I presume I've said something rubbish and everybody's was good. For example, let's say I have an experience. Let's say a genius idea. A genius idea is probably for the genius. I have an experience. I go to war and I survive. If I'm a talented man, poet, writer, painter, I can make an work of art based on my experience. If I don't have the talent, my experience will be known only by my friends, because I tell you them, if I'm a boring man, they probably don't want to listen. But if I have the proper tool, I don't know, ChatGPT, there are two applications that make pictures and stuff like that, and I make something wonderful because I tell the machine how to do it. Am I an artist? Am I not an artist? I don't have talent, but I have the experience, and the machine makes that. That makes me an artist or not. Because I think here will be the greatest problem of the poetry and performance and everything else. There will be a man with an idea, with an experience, with something. They want to communicate. All our history, we were in the art domain, I'm not referring to the other, were led by the people, by the talented people, the people that could put what they had in their head, put on the paper, on the walls, on the scene, everything. Now, with these tools, everyone can put something on the scene. If you don't have nothing in your head, you'll not put nothing or it will be rubbish. But if you have it and you don't have talent, you just have the idea, you can make something wonderful. And that will be democratization of poetry or the king of poetry.
Yeah, what it brought, it is we call it vernacularization. So it is basically like democratization, but for public. Yes. But I mean, the public before had different types of servers where they were putting amateur poetry, where many of them were similar, etc., etc. And I'll just continue. Yes, of course, you can use other tools. Like you were a Dadaist author who did kind of put a newspaper, mixed it. Are you an author? Yes, you are in a conceptual sense, because your name is there. I mean, the thing, you are not author just because you write it out of your mind. You are author because you decide to take this as a poem. Like we had the whole school of conceptual poetry, or we call it uncreative writing. That is a writing without writing. I mean, Kenneth Goldsmith and other authors, they never wrote anything, but I mean, they worked with the sources on the internet and mixed them in a different ways. I mean, that's conceptual approach to poetry. So, I mean, you can use the tools. The other thing is, since everyone can do it, what is then basically your excellent idea that working with those tools will be of use rather than not doing it by yourself? Like, it still doesn't write better poetry than you would write poetry.
Well, that's the problem in the history of poetry and literature. We will find that many novels had an idea that was previously used by people with no talent, and their work remained unknown. Somebody took that experience and with his talent made it known. That is, most of the, novels, poetries start from the same sentiments, experience, stuff like that. And the work, the talent made some shine and some disappear just disappeared. Nobody remembered them. And that is the question now, because now everybody, let's put some all the people in this room, and they make the same experience, yes? And we talk. Okay, tell a story of what you experienced. Write a poem of what happened here. You'll see, 20 people, 20 type of poem. Each one is different because we're not the same. Probably some ideas will be the same because some are friends, they think in the same way, they have the same background or stuff like that, but they'll never be the same. Okay, now we use a machine. We use a tool to do that. And that tool will transform them in something better that they can produce on the paper with their talents. They had the idea, but they can't express it. They are, they are not blessed by God. But now the God of the machine come and make. First, the machine can make them similar. It's true, because the machine have relatively some patterns to work. And the poems will still be, they will be genius, but they will be similar. The people will like it. And
we don't know, I still like human authors much more than the AI authors.
If I write you a text, a boring text, and after that I'll put in the machine and make it better. Which one do you pick? I won't tell you that I'll use the machine. Which text you pick? That's the important question. Which text you pick? You'll pick the better one. Because it resonates with you. It makes you happy. That's the problem. How we'll define the artist in the future? Because everyone with an idea that has a tool and can produce art, and the people will like it, and the people will choose it.
Okay, but all the time, since the democratization of the press, people could be doing whatever they want to be doing. Since 60s, people could be publishing their poetry.
Yes, but the difference, the selection it is made by something that we have inside, that we like it or not. Now, we take that from the public. We give it, I tell you something, and the machine transforms it in a form that you like, that it is tested, that will work on you, but probably not on you. You are an educated people, you studied a lot, you know a lot of text, you recognize the IE, but for the general public, whatever the people said will be transformed in a likable form. The people don't have time, they are bored, they don't want to dig deep, and they will like that.
Okay, I think there's still something that you are forgetting, is that the people want to write.
Yeah.
It's not that the people wouldn't want to write and want to give everything to AI. People want to write, artists want to create works because they live on it. So it's not that we want to use those tools because they make us better. No, they make you dumb. And your poetry is better than poetry made by AI unless you are creative enough and use it in the way that you work with it in a way, and that you basically, that the best results were the ones where the artists were brainstorming with AI, but not using it as a final form, or use it in a conversation, not writing the text with AI, because it's still bullshit, because it wasn't trained on a very good poetry that is a recent poetry, because there's not recent poetry sample. In our text, it is, like our Lisa that we have, like I didn't read it now, but in the other ones, the poems are much better 5 years ago that I wrote, that we generated, are still much better than think if I put ChatGPT write me a poem. It's bullshit, it has complete rhyming, it's simple, it doesn't have any invention. So, I mean, why would we waste the time if we want to speak, like, it's like you write poetry because you want to communicate with people. We still want to communicate whatever there is. Like we can write we can, for example, I give you another metaphor. You can write Tesla, you can write public, you can write with trams, you can write with subway. Like, would you necessarily write with Tesla all the time? No, you still use subway, you still use other things because they are also ecological. There are other reasons with not using AI is because it's not ecological. Anytime you generate a picture or generate a text, it's 5 kilometers of riding, as if. Count it. So people don't need to do it because they want to express themselves. Like we have the students that want to express themselves. I think people want to express themselves. That's why they spend the time Saturday afternoon here. Yeah. They could be chilling in the cinema, but they are here on a poetry workshop. If they wanted to be just famous and use ChatGPT, they would do it. Right. But I mean, they are happy to kind of create their own feelings and express whatever they think is necessary to be expressed. And you don't stop it by giving them easy way out. Of course, there are people who misuse it, and whose intention was all the time write something, and now they have tools to write without having any talent. But we have here people who are talented, that want to work on their talent and express themselves. And no other means stops them. Because, I mean, they could go swimming into bath, but I mean, they are still here, kind of working with their brain and writing. So I want to make it into an easy way out of those without talents. I would rather support those with talents to play and think about anything possible to make them more present and make them more true with what they want to deliver. But let's move to
Wednesday. Thank you. We should come close to the conclusions, but before that, we would like to listen to the poet and professor Nina Vasile. Vă ascultăm cu bucurie, da?
Am înțeles în mare parte. Ultima întrebare la care s-a pus.
Așa.
Din punctul meu de vedere, democratizarea poeziei abia acum începe cu AI.
Okay, so only nowadays with AI, the true democratization of poetry starts.
Pentru că putem să citim poezie din orice limbă și traducerea poate fi instantană.
Because we can instantly read translated poetry from any language.
și diferența valorică va face tocmai poezia de tip performance.
And the difference regarding value will be determined by the performative poetry.
Pentru că ceea ce poate performa live un poet, indiferent de dacă este valoros cu atât mai mult.
Because regardless what a poet can perform live, can't be
Doar în forma asta se vede.
remains only in this way, cannot be reproduced by the AI, the live presence of a performing poet.
Și atunci cei care dau premiul Nobel ar trebui să fie atenți la poeții care fac poezie performance.
Hence the Nobel jury, the jury that gives the Nobel Prize in Literature should pay attention, should pay more attention to poets that perform.
Bob Dylan e un exemplu, adică
Bob Dylan is a relevant example.
And they did it, now there won't be anything like that for 10 years, I think.
Spus că aici eu vorbesc în anii 90, deci am scris, am avut în că nu era deci în 2017 nu era în poezie.
Okay, so we have here the book The Way of Poetry, a poetic essay about known and unknown things. The Way of Poetry is the key. Da, Școala Poeziei, The Way of Poetry, or the Poetic Way. And it's a sort of visionary books. It is the history of the workshop, and it contains an anticipation because it starts from the 90s, and even in 2017, when the book was released, there was no AI, no GPT, no AI at the current level.
Dar ideea este tocmai ceea ce se întâmplă acum.
But it anticipates major directions of what is going on nowadays, also due to the development of AI.
Deschiderea către toate celelalte arte și domenii de cunoaștere și către științe a poeziei.
So it's a substantial opening towards the other arts and other fields of knowledge, the poetic opening, right?
My concept.
Nina Vasile's concept is the workshop of creation of creativity, poetry in life. So an existential perspective, poetry is the way of being, and at the same time poetry interconnected with all the other creative fields and fields of knowledge.
Atunci spun că suntem într-o schimbare a condiției existențiale a poetului.
Hence, we are in an exchange of the existential condition of the poet.
În care înseamnă schimbarea rolului lui în societate.
And the role of the poet in the society is also transformed.
Apropo de poezie, puterea poeziei.
And this is meaningful regarding the power of poetry. So the poet obtains a different social role and social potential.
De o parte este puterea dintotdeauna a poeziei în ființa umană.
So we have a combination of, on the one hand, the power of poetry since the beginnings, a general human power of poetry.
Și pe de alta este chiar ceea ce face deschiderea către societate, AI-ul de acum și trezirea conștiinței, menținerea unei conștiințe treze a ființei umane.
And on the other hand, there is the evolution encouraged by the new technological phenomena, especially AI, in the relationship with the attempt to maintain the awareness or an awake consciousness of the human potential. You know? Poetry is also related to understanding the actual human potential that should not be underestimated.
Acum, dacă vreau, o invit să vadă puțin ce am făcut acolo și
Yes, and after the conclusion, Ms. Nina Vasile invites you for a couple of minutes to see the concept of the workshop at the attic. So in 5 minutes. But before that, I said we should come close to a conclusion and thank you all for being present, for listening, for attending the dialogue. As we have many young people here, what would you recommend to someone young interested in writing poetry? This would be our conclusion.
Care e cel mai mic aici? Ce vârstă?
There's a question.
No, this is the final question. We should come to a conclusion. I received the sign, but
Atelierul meu cel mai mic are 14.
okay. So we have here people from 14 years old to 60 years old. But very short, if you'd like to recommend something to someone young interested in writing poetry.
Yeah, definitely recommend reading poetry. And not only reading poetry, but also kind of like being part of the kind of poetic scene. So I mean, go to festivals, go kind of like find people online that read it. Like be part that is kind of like active part of it, so that it basically like attaches you. Because when you just try to find new poetry, I mean, you can read it, but if like sometimes the poetry gets to you when you also don't know, like that is the way how when you go to festivals or different types of readings, people who you would normally find out with your channels, you can find it there because somebody curates it. So I mean, go to these kind of different curated anthologies, go to festivals, so be kind of like active in the scene. I think it's very important also for all the people to get to know you. And we, for example, in Slovakia have also kind of like workshops. There is like a week workshop in summer, like a summer camp of poetry, where the people exchange ideas. So I don't know if you have anything like that. So kind of like, but you are now here, so this type of workshop. But that is important, and also yeah, try to find kind of like different inspirations, and try to find kind of like things that basically try to find the things that you think are missing. Like for example, I've been all the time doing things not because I wanted to be part of a trend, but because I knew it's missing in our culture. So if you kind of like find out other cultures that have something that you don't have, I think that's a good start to try to develop something that you are missing in your culture and be that type of voice. But you have to find like, of course, know about the foreign trends, but also kind of like invent your own. So it's also kind of like try to invent your own voice.
Yeah, well, thank you very much, and thank you very much. This meeting definitely could go on in an intense, productive way until tomorrow, but we should gently respect the work schedule, but definitely it's an optimistic sign that whenever you will come back to Bucharest, you are here welcome again. And as a brief conclusion, let's say that the presence and the power of poetry can go on. So thank you again for this meeting that has a real chance to be meaningful and useful beyond this countless amount of minutes we spent together here. Mulțumim încă o dată și
And huge thanks to Vasile for perfect preparation, all the contacting, all the help, all the very careful reading with a lot of yeah, interpretational skills. So thank you very much.